What's up? What's up? What's up, beautiful people? It's Pretty Girl Love Strap Content. And we have another video, okay? Today we are discussing grief, okay? It's the holiday season and that can bring on all sorts of emotions, okay? Including grief, all right? And honestly, grief is probably one of the most difficult emotions you can experience in general, but the holiday season, it hit hard. It hit harder, okay? But this video is by no means it's planned to be depressing or sad or, just down. I'm not that type of girl. But I do want to be transparent in terms of my grieving process and just maybe, share my story. Not too much of my story, but just to let you guys know that it's a normal part of life, okay? And your girl is trying to truck through it, and hopefully you can find some type of solace or some type of use this as a resource possibly. I will be sharing like some tips that I am working through to push through this holiday season. Okay, so let's get into it. All right, let's get into it. But before we do, please, if you don't mind, liking the video, subscribing, doing all the things to support the channel. Okay, so thank you so much, HEA and Brillo. What's up, Brillo? Thank you for coming through. I appreciate it. If y'all don't mind liking that video. But yeah, we're here to talk about grief. Like I said, it's not supposed to be a sad, depressing video. We're just going to talk through it, okay? Because at the end of the day, it's common, okay? It's common, not the rapper. It's common, all right? And, if I make any jokes, I'm not making light of grief. It's just my way of coping and not bringing the mood too down, okay? Because this is already a heavy topic, okay? So, like I said, grief can hit harder in the holidays, especially if you've lost someone that is fairly close to you or that you was very fond of. And like I said, the purpose of this video is to share my experience and provide some sort of comfort and maybe some tips to help work through grief, because I am 40 and typically in my age group, most people will have experienced some sort of grief. If you haven't, blessings to you, okay? But typically, by 40, you have lost some folks, okay? Hey, Miss Kira, thank you for coming through. I appreciate you. So if you don't know, my dad passed in May of this year. And this is my first holiday season with him not walking God's green earth, physically. All right, because I do feel and believe that people's spirits still remain with you. Okay. And just to be transparent, my father and I pretty much had a strained relationship. Just being transparent. We were pretty close during my 30s, but there are some things that transpired and we kind of drifted apart a little bit. And he passed in May, right? So I spoke to him. I last spoke to him maybe about 5 or 6 months before he passed. So, we didn't speak for the last several months of his life. But I will say our last conversation was on a positive note. It wasn't the conversation that I necessarily wanted in terms of getting all the things I wanted to get out. But I do have solace in knowing that the last time we spoke, we were on decent terms. Like, it wasn't any arguing, bickering. We never argued or anything. For the most part, we were fairly close when we were in close contact, right? So yeah, that's just little tidbit about me and my father's relationship. Thank you, Miss Kira, I appreciate it. And I'm sharing this information, of course, to be transparent. You guys know I typically review TV shows and movies or what have you, and I'm very I feel like I like to joke, I like to laugh, but I do consider you guys my virtual village. You guys have supported me through the good times, through the bad times, so I'm just, sharing, this part of my life. So I wanted to share the fact that me and my father were not necessarily on the closest of terms when he passed, because through my experience in life and through research and through even my own psychologist, and I don't want to create some sort of hierarchy, like, one form of grief is harder than the other. But I will say grieving someone or losing someone when you're not on the best of terms is different to navigate versus when, you lost someone you were on great terms with. I don't want to say one is harder, one is easier, but I will say losing someone that you feel like could have been some sort of improvement in your life or in your relationship, that can bring on another set of emotions. You may have, regret, you may have sorrow, you may have confusion, uncertainty, you may be playing the blame game, you may have the what if game going on, like, dang, and I went through it. I don't want to necessarily say I blame myself for my father's passing, but I did think, like, dang, because I will honestly say I was the one who pretty much made the decision to kind of step back from my relationship with him. So I would say I definitely struggled with the thought, like, was I too hard? Could I have, because he was honestly reaching out to me for some time, and I was ignoring calls, I was ignoring messages, and that's a hard piece to know that. And I don't want to tear, guys. Like I said, I don't want this to be a sad video, but I'm just explaining and just giving you guys a glimpse of what I'm going through. But I will definitely say I've had many moments where I've questioned my decisions on how I handled relationship. And one thing about death, it would definitely shine a light and teach you more about life, right? Because you never know. That's a prime example. You never know. You always think you have more time. Because honestly, I wasn't ready to have the conversation with him. I definitely was. Maybe it was partially immaturity or just me just not wanting to deal with it or not thinking it was a priority. But I definitely have plenty of moments where I'm like, I should have reached out sooner. But I am at least happy that I did reach out finally. And we did have a conversation. It didn't really unpack all the things, but it was a light, quick, short conversation nonetheless. But I am at least happy that I did finally made the call and we did speak, because I really feel like if I never made that last call to him, I probably would have felt worse. just being honest, I probably would have felt worse about this whole situation. Let me just go ahead and just address the chat in the comments before I go any further. Hey, Detroit, thank you for coming through. Hey, thanks, Rainy J. I got your message. And because I believe you went through some loss. So we in this together. Okay. Miss Kira, you said it's great that you're sharing. A lot of people go through grief around the holidays. Yes, I definitely feel like it's therapeutic and important for me and for, whoever's watching to know, like, hey, this is common. I am not exempt from any emotion. Detroit, you said it's the hardest part. I had to deal with the death of my uncle when he passed away. Yeah, it's hard. Miss Kira, you said I lost a close friend almost 2 years ago and we hadn't spoken some time, still messes me up to the scene. Yeah, that's hard, Really said, I can't lie, have been a pretty dark place. Hold up. I can't lie. I have been in a pretty dark place. You admit it now. There may be a typo. But I hope you're doing okay, Rillo. I definitely pray for you. You my bro, 10 toes down. So, I definitely want you to be okay, because mental health is important, and grief is definitely something that can affect your mental health. Whether you experience mental health issues before your grieving process, or this is an onset situation where you begin to experience mental health issues. Just being completely transparent with you guys. I was diagnosed with anxiety and high blood pressure this year. And I'm like, dang, I just turned 40. Like, what happened to 40 is the new 20 or the new 30? Like, what is going on here? You know what I'm saying? But I will say, and I just have this is a loose conversation. I do have some pointers I kind of want to bring up, but just this is a natural conversation. I would say about my father's death, it allowed me to take a damn chill pill. Okay, just for a lack of a better term, it allowed me to not be as uptight and as anxious and as stressed as I typically am. I mean, don't get me wrong. I can still go off. Okay, I can still go off. But like I said, one thing about death, it'll definitely teach you about life. And it teaches you not to take life for granted. So, for lack of a better term, I've learned not to sweat the small stuff for the most part. Okay. Like, certain things, old PG, 39-year-old PG, I would be hot and heavy. Okay. I would be upset. But now I'm like, I let things flow down my back sometimes because it ain't worth it. Like, why? I don't need to have this stress or, frustration, because it could be worse. You know what I'm saying? So I've learned to pretty much appreciate a lot of things and just take a step back and calm the F down for the most part. Okay. Because it's a lot. Miss Kira, you said you did what's best for you. I'm sure he knew you loved him. Yeah. Oh God, I want to get teary-eyed. But I don't know when I started this, but several years ago, I made it a point to save voice messages from my loved ones. So I have messages saved from my mom, my grandmother, my stepfather. I mean, him and my mom's been divorced, but I still consider him my stepdad. And I actually saved messages from my biological dad. And some of those messages included, just him inquiring about me, wanted to know am I okay? And I literally just ignored those messages. And I've listened to those messages since. Sometimes I can't, but sometimes it was comforting to actually listen to his voice. So that's mainly the purpose of listening to those messages. I don't know if I can listen to them now because I go in and out of phases and stages, but that is a good rule that I would recommend if you can handle it, because maybe 5 years from now, I want to hear his voice. And so I saved those voice messages from him. I actually also emailed them to myself just in case something happens to the cloud, or, even though emails are technically the cloud too, but I just wanted to have those voice messages saved in multiple locations. I may even save it to a USB drive or something down the line, but it definitely was comforting hearing his voice, because that's something I kind of ran to when I first found out, about his death. Let me see what's going on in the comments before I go any further. Rainy J said you lost your mom 2 months ago, and we have been in a great place the last few. Yeah, that's why I said is grief is difficult to navigate, because if you're not on good terms, or if you are on good terms, it's still hard, but you just may be dealing with different things during that process. Hey, Miss K, thank you for coming through. Oh, you said you met for a minute now. Well, I definitely hope you're doing better, Brillo. I know you're a hard worker and you're a good brother, so I definitely hope that you're doing better. Or will be doing better. Miss Carrie, you said 40 is the new 30. These 30-year-olds have anxiety too. That is facts. Yeah. The term crash out definitely fits, because these 20-year-olds be over here crashing out. 15-year-olds, okay? Like, I blame social media for the most part, but we're not going to get into that rant. HEA, you said one of the things I learned from my father's passing is to let things go, don't hold grudges, and be less angry. That is exactly what I've learned. Now, don't get me wrong. There's people in my life where I still, on some level, hold them accountable for the past and past actions, but I've definitely learned not, and I still struggle sometimes, because you don't want people to get away with murder, if you want to say, but at the same time, you have to understand, like, hey, is it worth it? You know what I'm saying? Is it worth it? That's like a big question that you can ask yourself, with the people that's still in your life. Like, is it worth it? Is it worth still being angry and mad? And sometimes you may have situations where there's people in your life like, yeah, what you did was effed up. I'm still mad. Okay. You know what I'm saying? But that's for you to decide and to judge. But I personally, have people in my life where I, that's that phrase, you can forgive, but you can't forget, What's up, Tamika's Den? Thank you for coming through. HEA, you like that idea? I think you're talking about the voice messages. Yes. Miss K, you said you're doing well, hanging in there. Actually, we got to have a trolling session one of these days. Yes. I was trying to do a Team Toxic before the year is out. I'm not sure if I'm able to do a conference. I was going to try to get it through. Detroit, you said you miss your father. Yeah. That's the tough part, right? Just that missing factor. Like, Rainy J said, I am not holding grudges, but I have some things to say to my sister for sure. Yeah. And if you feel like you want to, get closure on some situations where that's been lingering on, and, that you've been festering over, or that you pretty much did not make a priority, that is definitely something I would recommend too, because like I said, you never know. I thought I would have more time. My dad was 62, 62 or 63. Yeah, he would have been 64 his birthday. So I thought I had more time. I didn't. And someone in the comment mentioned, they're sure he knew that I loved him. And that's the tough part for me, right? Because I knew he loved me and he told me all the time. But I guess one of the parts that I'm sad about is him. I don't know if he know if I loved him, because I held that grudge. I ignored multiple calls and messages. So that's part of the grieving process that saddens me, is because I often think I would hate to his last moments or last days on this earth questioning how I felt about him. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's something you never want to do. And, I've kind of, implemented that in my day-to-day life, just randomly giving people their flowers and their appreciation. I've always kind of done that at some level, but now I'm more intentional with honoring and letting the people in my life know, like, hey, I love you. I appreciate you. Like, thank you, because I feel like we don't do that very often. Well, sometimes we take it for granted. We just assume people know and can mind read, but it's good to kind of hear that. Remember with Miss K, you said also grief isn't just about death. My divorce has put me in a damper on the holidays, and the kids are affected as well. Yes, grief is definitely just, not something, related to, well, it's a death on another level, it's death of the relationship. Um, and that, I'm sure that is definitely hard, Miss K. Um, and it could be harder because in certain situations, you've lost someone or a relationship with someone, but you still can see them or you still can communicate with them. So it's like, how do you navigate that relationship? Like our relationship that we have always known or have known is no longer there, but you're still here. You're still here. So how do I navigate you in that situation? And sometimes maybe you don't navigate, but when you have family and kids, and sometimes if you're married and probably for a long time, you become family. So it's like, how do you navigate that? That is so hard and so tough. Hey, Shayna, thank you for coming through. I appreciate you. Tamika, you said this is the time of year. Sorry, this time of the year has been hard for the last 7 years. It's definitely going to be harder this year. Without your, yes, you lost your sister this year as well. Praying for you. That's so hard. HEA, you said same here. PG, I hope he knew I loved him. I didn't say it, but there was the best way. I was there to the best of my ability. Yeah, and I know when me and him were close, I feel like he had to have known I loved him. You know what I'm saying? I admire him on some level because honestly, my dad was kind of in and out of my life as a child. And so there were so many things about myself I questioned or did not know, because it's like, okay, I have my mama with my mom every day, but there was things about me where I'm like, where do I get this from? Like my love for like fashion and clothes and stepping out and looking good and feeling good. I didn't know where I really completely got that from, and knowing and learning my dad, I'm like, oh, I got that from you. And not necessarily thinking that I questioned where I got it from, but getting to know him and understanding him made me realize like, oh, this kind of stemmed from somewhere. And then of course I learned about his mother who passed 3 months before I was born. So I never got to meet my paternal grandmother. And come to find out, she was a seamstress and she loved fashion and home decor, like the same things I love. So, it's definitely interesting to say the least when you start learning things about it. Yes, Tamika, we definitely take things for granted. But yeah, everybody's grieving process is different. And I feel like I say this a lot, but I don't mean to say it, but I do have a psychology degree, right? And we spent like a chapter in college on grief, which I feel like grief is such a normal occurrence and emotion. I feel like we should have spent more time on it, but it was an undergraduate degree. So I'm sure if I would have went to graduate school, we would have spent more time on it. But I did learn, the 5 stages of grief, right? So, there's denial, there's bargaining, there's anger, there's depression, there's acceptance. So when I was in school, I was under the impression that the 5 stages of grief was a typical cookie cutter process. Like, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, here's step 4, right? Nah. No, that is not actually how things work. Now, let me just back up and say my dad is not the first person I've lost. I lost my grandfather. I was about 11, and I lost my grandmother when I was 18, right? So I've experienced grief, right? But I feel like for some reason, the older you get, the more you lose, grief hits you harder, right? And earlier, I was thinking to myself, how did I grieve? Like, did I grieve my grandparents, right? So I kind of want to, I'm going to share this story, y'all, and don't judge me, okay? Because I was like, oh my God, I was really grieving and I didn't get no help. So just to give you guys some background, And I think for most cases, for a lot of people, you typically spend more time with your mother's family, like your, maternal family, not saying people don't spend time with their dad's side, but I spent majority of my time with my mother's side of the family, right? So my mother, of course, I had my grandmother and grandfather, and my grandparents had 5 kids, 4 boys, and my mom was the youngest, who's the girl. My mom was the only girl who had girls, and my uncles were the only boys who had sons. So just to let y'all know, your girl was spoiled, okay? Because my sisters, they weren't born until I was 12 and 13. So I was the only child for like 12 years, okay? So spoiled. Yes, I was, okay? I was it, okay? I was the only child. I wasn't the youngest grandchild, but my cousin, he's 11 months younger than me, but he spent most of his time with his mom's side, right? So he came around, but not as often. So I still technically consider myself the baby of the family. So yes, the only niece, the only granddaughter. I had it made, right? I had it made. So me and my grandfather we were tight. Okay. When it came to me, I remember, I had different family members pick me up from school, right? But every morning, well, my grandfather would ask me what I wanted for dinner, and he would cook it. He would cook it. And my grandmother actually did that too later on in life. But he would ask me what I wanted. He knew what my favorite meal was: stewed chicken, rice, gravy, and corn muffins. Okay. So he would cook the food, pick me up from school, and bring me back home, right? Mind you, while he's doing this, my cousins who were like in their late teens, they would be home chilling. But he would tell them, do not touch those pots. And I don't know if you guys know, my name is Chanel. He said, don't touch those pots until Chanel eat first. And I remember coming home from school. When you come from school, you ain't trying to eat. Okay, it's good 3:00. Okay, you trying to play, watch cartoons. And I remember my cousins, they would be like literally looking at me like, Chanel, you're not hungry yet. You ain't hungry, because they was hungry. They could not eat until I touched that pot. You know what I'm saying? They could not eat. And they used to be so aggravated with me because I was so spoiled. So me and my grandfather, like I said, we were tight. Okay, I was his baby girl. Okay, so when I lost him, right, I actually lived in Florida for a year. So this was the year where I lived in Florida, and I was in the 6th grade. And I saw him during like spring break when I went to New York. Because when I left New York, wherever I was, I had to get back. Okay, Christmas break, Easter break, summer break, whatever time I had 4 days or more out of school, I'm going back. Okay, I'm going back. Okay, so we spent time Easter, and then like a month or so later, I got the news of his passing, right? And don't laugh at me, y'all. Do not judge me. But we did the funeral and everything, and I came back home. I literally quit school. I quit school. Now, you want to ask, how did you quit school in the 6th grade? I stopped going. I stopped going. And the way I was able to do this, right? Because, like I said, we moved to Florida. We didn't have any support system. You know what I'm saying? It was just me and my mom. So my mom would go to work after I would go to school, and she would come home after I got home from school. So in theory, I was pretty much responsible for going to school, going to the bus, going to school, and coming back. Like, she would never know. And I literally dropped out in the 6th grade. I stopped going. I was depressed. I was sad. And I remember I used to watch Power Rangers. Like, I was living my best life in the house. And then I don't know, I feel like it was maybe a month later, maybe before then, she got a call from the school, and she was told I wasn't going. And then, of course, It was a lot. It was a lot, you guys. But I'm like, I was laughing to myself earlier today. I was like, I was grieving. I was literally grieving. And I did not even, I understood what I was feeling. I knew I was sad. I knew I missed my grandfather. But I was like, I was an extremist. I literally was over here in the bed watching Power Rangers and Barney and whatever else because I was grieving at the age of like 11, right? And the school was very gracious. They gave me all the work I missed, allowed me to make up everything, but it got too overwhelming. So we decided just for me to move and just start over somewhere else. But I don't think I've told that story very often. But yeah, PG dropped out of the 6th grade and I restarted the 6th grade. And honestly, I feel like everything happens for a reason because I feel like if I didn't repeat the 6th grade, I wouldn't have met the friends I, would have met, would have had the experiences and the relationships that I experienced. Now, let me just let y'all also know, New York is very tricky. I think a lot of places are, but I can only speak to my experience. New York is very tricky when it comes to birthdays and when you start school, right? So my birthday is in January. So I went through kindergarten, but the school system was trying to send me to kindergarten another year because I was technically not of age to start the 1st grade. So I remember my grandmother taking me to the Board of Education and making them be enrolled in the 1st grade. So in theory, I was still in my right grade that I got left back. But y'all, I just wanted to tell y'all that story. Oh gosh, Miss K, you said no, baby, grief is definitely not a linear process. I am seeing that for sure as I go back and forth through the steps. Yes. So yes, going back to the 5 stages of grief. I'm sorry, y'all. I went on a little tangent, but like I said, this is not to be like a sad video, right? So I thought, there was 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, 4 step. So I started grief counseling, coincidentally, I was going to start counseling just in general, but by the time like my insurance and everything, because I already applied for it before my dad died. So it kind of lined up to where I was able to start literally a week after he died, right? So we kind of turned that into like grief counseling. And honestly, my therapist sucked. I would say, she wasn't the best fit for me, even though I feel like she probably treated all of her patients like that, but she was definitely not a good therapist. And I've been through therapy. I've been, premarital counseling. I've had my own individual therapy throughout the years. So I understand therapist is kind of like it's not a one size fit all type situation. You really have to find the therapist that works for you. It's kind of like a relationship. Like you kind of have to try people out. Hey, if this person don't work, let me find somebody else. But she definitely did not help me for the most part. But I will say the one main takeaway I did have from her, she explained to me that the process of grief in terms of the steps, it can definitely like coincide. You know what I'm saying? It can flip-flop, it can happen simultaneously, it can intertwine, it can combine, you can go back and forth. Like I did not realize that. Like I stated, I grieved my grandfather, I grieved my grandmother, and that's a whole nother story I don't want to get into because I don't want this video to be long. But just know, I don't really feel like I completely properly grieved my grandmother because she passed when I was a freshman in college. And going to college was such a joy for her because I was I'm the first person in my family to graduate college, right? So for her to even know that I was going to college was such a joy to her. So when she passed my first semester, I just kicked into high gear. Like, make sure my grades, I was on a dean's list, I was on a president's list, because I know I was not really just in college for me, I was in college for her. So I was in such high gear, just trying to make her proud from the heavens above. I don't know. I think I grieved, but it was kind of more like a motivational type thing. It wasn't like I was sad. I was sad, don't get me wrong, but I think it was like a battery in my pack. You know what I'm saying? It was a different type of grieving process. And let me just also mention, losing my father has also made me think of and reminisce and think of my grandmother more. Like, I don't know what that is. When you go through grief for one person, it starts a whole nother effect where you start grieving other people. And it's just like, hold up, wait a minute. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Like, let me just focus. Like, why am I thinking about this person now and this person and this person? It's just like, it just opens up a Pandora's box of grief. And I'm like, pump your brakes, shorty. Like, what are we doing? Oh God, thank you so much, Marcus, so much for the super chat. You said Pretty Girl Love Shop content. What's your plans for your B-Day? I will be in New York on my birthday. Shout out to the hubby. Okay, he's finding out. Okay, I'm getting flued out. All right. Rainy J, you said, yeah, me as a New Yorker. I didn't go to kindergarten and was born in December. I am doing grief counseling to second session on 26. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I hope that definitely is beneficial to you, right? Miss Kira, you said your first therapist didn't work for you either. Yeah, that happens. And sometimes if you're already on the fence about therapy, most people or some people would be like, oh, therapy ain't for me. This person ain't doing nothing. But if you're really serious about therapy and the process and understanding that is not a one size fit all situation, you would still just keep going, find somebody else, because that's kind of a easy cop out, like, oh, it ain't work. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. Let's see here. I see y'all talking about Shayna. She tried, but I'm not sure what message it was. Oh, I highlighted it. I'm tripping. You said my oldest child passed away at birth. The therapist I went to was awful and didn't try to therapy again for years. I don't know if I was talking while I highlighted this or what, or I just read it. I don't know, y'all. I feel like I'm out of body sometimes when I'm talking about grief, so I apologize, Shayna. But I can't even imagine what that is like. Like, I'm not sure how long it was, but I can imagine like pain like that never goes away. Never goes away. And I know you've had children since. And I even know like that doesn't necessarily even help because it's still someone you lost, And I'm sure you have feelings like, would it for, what I'm saying? You probably envisioned so many things and had so many plans. So I'm so sorry to hear that, hon. Oh my gosh. Whew, that is heavy. And losing a parent is hard, but I feel losing a child is even harder, merely for the fact because we have the thought process. We're not supposed to bury our children, Like I used to think, because my grandmother lost two of her sons, before she passed. And I think my grandmother, she used coping mechanisms that weren't, healthy. But I can't even imagine like burying kids. Like that's losing. That's a lot. That is definitely a lot. Oh God. Oh, child. We all need prayer. Okay, we all need prayer. HJ said that's true. I started tracing ancestry. Yes. I was just talking. Who was I talking to about that? Oh, my husband last night. Yeah, I was just talking about that, going back and see like when we was shipped on that boat, who was our peoples? You know what I'm saying? Who was our peoples? But yes, there are 5 stages of grief that I learned. Now, doing light research on the internet yesterday, I came across, 7 stages of grief. And I don't know why my computer is freaking out. So now they've added 2 additional stages, right? They have shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, testing, and acceptance. So they pretty much added shock and testing. Now, I'm not opposed to these 7 stages because when I first found out, I it's weird because I was shocked, but I was still like numb. Like it took a while for it to hit me, because my mom was the one who notified me. And it's like I was hearing, but I wasn't, like I was fully aware what she was saying, but I don't know. It was just, it took me a while. And honestly, I felt like, and this always kind of happens. It don't really hit me until I see that person at their homegoing. Like that's when and sometimes it don't even fully register until after that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a lot, right? But I say all this today about, the 7 stages or the stages of grief is that it's not cookie cutter. Everybody's process is going to be different. The amount of time you grieve is not going to be the same. And honestly, I feel like for most people, unfortunately, grieving or grief is an ongoing thing. It's probably a life thing. They say you never be the same, especially when you lose like a parent or a child. It changes you. Now I'm still navigating how my father's death is changing me. Honestly, I do know there's certain things I am cognizant of, like, hey, I'm taking things a lot more easier. I'm being more, I feel like I'm more in tune with myself, honestly. Like the first few months after he died, I don't know what it is, but it's a voice that speaks to me. And I know that sounds a little weird, a little crazy, but I've had instances where, because I work from home for the most part, so I'll be working from home and then something will tell me, you need some fresh air. You need to go take a walk. You need to go outside and run some errands. Like you need nature. Like, I don't know what it is. Like his death has drawn me more to nature than normal. And don't get me wrong, I like to be in the house. Okay. Air condition me, please. Okay. I'm not outdoorsy. I don't like extreme weathers. I don't like bugs. I don't like the uncertainty of nature for the most part, right? And I have my husband to kind of get me out of that because he is a park person. He is Dora the Explorer, the Negro version, okay? He loved going out and exploring and experimenting. So he has gotten me out of my shell when it comes to, exploring outside and nature and things. But overall, like innately and naturally, I like to be in the air condition, right? So just the fact that I'm, being just more in tune with myself about, decisions I'm making and what it's telling me to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I listen to it. I definitely make sure I listen to whatever voice this is. Okay, I'm gonna be obedient to whatever voice this is. I don't know if it's God. I don't know if it's my father. I don't know who this is talking to me. Okay, but they talking and I'm listening. All right. Hey, Stephen Harris, thank you for coming through. I appreciate you. So, like for all of those who are grieving, just know, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to sit in your pain. It's okay to feel your pain because sometimes what we do so often, and I could definitely speak to women because I feel like we, for some reason, and I don't want to compare genders, but especially when it comes to the home and the household, we take on a role as taking care of more things, right? In terms of the physical things like in the house, like chores and groceries, what have you. So sometimes it's hard to sit in that sadness because, especially for me, I'm like, okay, I experience guilt a lot when I relax. I don't know what it is. It could be partially mommy guilt, but I just feel guilty about resting, right? So when I'm going through the grieving process, and there's been times, there's been moments, there's been days where I cannot get up from that couch. Now, don't get me wrong, my sectional is very much comfortable, okay? But there's moments I can't get up. I cannot get up. Now, over time, it's gotten a little easier, I would say that, but try to peel me up from the couch. It's hard sometimes, right? But I did say it's okay to feel, right? But I'm challenging myself, and I have challenged myself, and I challenge you. Now, let me just also say, I should put it across the screen. I am by no means a licensed therapist. Okay. Yes, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. I am not practicing therapy at all. I'm just and sharing my experience and my recommendations and what I'm going through. Okay. Don't be over here be like PG told me to do this, do that. Don't be out there. Don't be out here, blaming me for stuff. Okay. I'm just sharing and being transparent about my experience, right? So I've had moments where I couldn't get up from the couch, right? And I allow myself to feel, I allow myself to cry. And you have to do that because what you don't want to do is have that built up emotion and then not utilize the opportunity to sit in that and then have it blow up somewhere else or with someone else. Okay. Because I've kind of done that a couple of times. And thank God people give me grace. But you definitely want to be able to feel what you're feeling and be okay with that. Okay. But what I've also told myself, I've had days where I can't get up from that couch, but I gave myself a time limit. I said, all right, on this couch, you're going to sit here, watch whatever YouTube blogs, whatever you want to watch, be sad. But tomorrow you get your behind up. Okay. You're going to get up. You're going to do the things. You're going to go outside. You're going to get some fresh air, because I'm not saying you should and necessarily like grief can be controlled, but I am challenging myself to take a little more ownership of the grieving process. You know what I'm saying? And not saying that I'm just saying for the most part, I'm just trying to not be in that sunken place for too long, because that can definitely affect you in your mental health. You know what I'm saying? And it can make things worse. And that's something, you definitely want to steer away from, especially during the holiday season, because when it comes to seasonal depression, it's real. And there's so many factors involved with seasonal depression. The weather is dreary, it's cold. You can't really necessarily go outside. The sun be, acting like they don't want to come through like they want to. You know what I'm saying? The activities is a little different, a little shut down. You can't have little block parties. You can't really, go to too many festivals. I mean, they have certain things depending on where you live, but for the most part, the holidays can be a more somber, more depressive type of, time of the year, but it is what you make of it, because I choose for the most part to make the holidays a pleasant time, but you can do but so much when it comes to grief, right? So just give yourself grace, but also give yourself a grace period to be like, all right, I'm gonna feel my feels, but I'm gonna do as much as I can to get out of this by X, Y, and Z, right? Because you have to, it's necessary, and I'm trying to navigate different steps, different tips to give myself on how to go through that process, whether it's, I can't even hold you. I'm trying to be on my health journey, so I ain't been going on a lot of traditional walks per se, but going to Target, that's kind of a walk for me. Okay. Walking to and from the parking lot and through the aisles, the clearance end caps, that's kind of a walk for me. Okay. So I consider that exercise and a walk. So, whether it's going for a walk, in some fresh air, sometimes being amongst people, now you got to be careful. The viruses are out. Okay. The germs are out. So proceed with caution. Again, I am not a licensed therapist, so do not hold none of this against me. Okay. I'm just saying being amongst people or nature may help, right? And if you practice a religion, talk to God or whatever God you believe in, have a conversation with God. Talk to your loved one, honestly, now that I say that, I'm recommending it or as an option, but honestly, I don't even know if I've ever talked to my dad. And I feel like I would remember. I feel like I've said little things here and there, but having a clear conversation with him, I don't even think I've done that myself. Maybe I should. Maybe I should. You can also share with a friend or family member about how you're feeling, or you can not share how you're feeling, but still reach out to someone, be able to communicate with another person, right? You know, sometimes you have that good girlfriend or that good homeboy or that good family member that you know when you get on the phone or start texting, sharing memes or having a good laugh, like they can make your mood better. You know what I'm saying? Like, you already know if I call such and such, we gonna get them jokes going. Okay, I'm gonna feel better, right? Because you know, sometimes you want to be able to lean on your village if you have one. Now, speaking of village, sometimes you may find yourself in an unlikely position or having an unlikely situation. I have a coworker who lost her dad 3 months after I did. What's up, Ronald Cameron? Thank you for coming through. So I don't like to use the word trauma bond, but I must say we've kind of leaned on each other through our experiences. Which is, you know, been healthy and helpful for both of us. You know, unfortunately is a sad thing, and we were cool before then, you know what I'm saying? But sharing this weird bond, you know, allow us to kind of be vulnerable and lean on each other, you know what I'm saying, for moments we need to. So you may find, you know, an unlikely source, because being transparent, honestly, grief has put me in weird positions and weird trains of thought, right? Honestly, there was a time a few months ago I started being upset and angry and resenting a lot of people who I thought would check on me more. Now we know the first couple weeks when people find out, you get all the condolences, you get all the things. You know, back in the day, you know, you would have people bring over food, you know, come to the funeral, the repast, blah blah. My situation is a little different because, you know, I'm in the South and my dad was in New York, so I didn't have any people, you know, that were local. But I was upset with some people. I'm not even gonna hold you, because I feel like, and I am the type of person to check on people. Like, I'm the friend, I'm gonna check up on you. I'm a family member, I'm gonna check on you. You know what I'm saying? And I understand that sometimes people don't treat you how you would want to be treated. So you can't necessarily expect or assume you will get certain, you know, certain behaviors out of people. But I must say, I've been upset. Like, dang, I thought we was cool. You ain't check up on me. You know what I've been through? Like, not playing the pity party game or the, you know, woe is me. Like, I didn't have my like violin out, but I was legit like disappointed in certain people, because I'm like, dang, like, you know what happened to me? You ain't check up on me. What's up with that? I didn't say that to those people, but I was definitely feeling that way. And I'm also cognizant of knowing people have their own shit. People definitely going through their own ish. And honestly, I do understand that some people don't know how to approach the conversation. They don't know how to do it. Because I find myself coping people or checking on people through their grief. And sometimes you don't really know how to insert that. Like, hey, how you doing? I know you know what I'm saying? Like, it's sometimes hard to navigate those conversations. So I did have to take a step back, like, you know what? Let me give this person some grace, because you know what? I even find myself in the midst of confusion on how to check on this person's mental health. Because one thing about grief, you don't know how that person is always processing it. And I overthink. So sometimes, like, for instance, I have a homegirl who lost her mom like within a week of me losing my dad, right? So I was always checking up on her, never really got that reciprocated. And like I said, people have their own ish, I get it. But and she would check on me after I check up on her, like in that conversation. But sometimes I am hesitant to reach out, because I'm thinking maybe she's having a good hour or a good day. and not thinking about that necessarily. And I don't want to ask her and she get all these feelings back. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be the culprit of the one, bringing back these feelings, even though I know you're grieving constantly in a sense, but sometimes you're more cognizant and aware of it than others. But so I say that to kind of be transparent on how I was feeling through my process, but also like trying to understand, like, people have their own ish. We grown out here in these streets, okay? We got lives. So you're not, always thinking about what she got going on or what he got going on. You know what I'm saying? Ronald Cameron, you said, sorry, RC, I'm so sorry. I can't get out of that. You said, praying for everyone who's lost a loved one and struggles with the holidays. Yes, definitely. Thank you. Miss Carrie says, sometimes it's hard to find the words exactly. It's like, that's one thing you don't know how to say. Like, where's that book? I'm sure they got a book, maybe in a YouTube video on how to say what to say. Miss Carrie, you said, or the right word should I say? You are definitely right. But the main thing that I do to kind of get me through this hump, this process, in terms of my thoughts and mental health process with this, is trying to make it as positive as I can possibly make it. And I do that by thinking of his life as more celebratory than as a somber experience, right? Because at the end of the day, let me just get candid with y'all, folk, okay? We know about science. We know how babies are made. We know what sperm is. We know what sperm count. We know the sperm race, okay? So if you think about it, we all are winners, okay? We all beat tens, hundreds, thousands of other sperms, okay? Our daddy's sperm made it to our mom's egg, okay? I was the one. We was the one. We winners, okay? So the mere fact that we was able to go through this conception process and live life, we winning, okay? So I am definitely appreciative and grateful for the 60 some odd, years that he had on this earth. Because life is short, okay? I have classmates that I've been losing since graduation week, okay? Like, it's crazy, okay? So the fact that he was able to, in 63 could be considered young for a lot of people, but at the same time, that's 6 decades. That's still a good amount of time to be able to have lived life. You know what I'm saying? So I try to look at it positive, like more as a celebratory moment and experience. Also thinking about the good times that we've had. You know what I'm saying? We never really had bad times. We had absent times, don't get me wrong, but knowing all the good times we had, that's honestly my go-to to kind of get out of my funk. Just thinking of a good experience, right? And speaking of that, we also have, with grief, that experience is triggers. Those triggers, y'all, is something else, okay? Y'all, his birthday was in November. And I didn't know, of course, this is new to me. So I definitely know that there's triggers, but 2 that I can think of. Going into the grocery store, minding my business, shopping for bread. Look at the expiration date on the bread, and it's his birthday. Why I was over there about to lose my ish in the bread out at the grocery store. I'm like, what is happening here? Like, why? Like, the mere date of his birthday on bread, a bread packaging, almost had me in my feelings the whole day. The whole day, right? And then I have this story with my dad. He lived in the Bronx for a good bit of his, last couple of decades, right? So, I'm not saying that this is kind of connected, but he loved Fat Joe and Remy Ma song All the Way Up. He loved that song down. Like, I remember visiting him one time, and we was kind of like parting ways from our visit. And down the block, this man was singing All the Way Up, the chorus, like to the top of it, like the whole block heard this man and he did not give 0 F's. Okay. I'm like, he is loud as hell. Like he loved that song so much. So guess what happens to me? Every time I hear that song, it's a thought. Okay. Now don't get me wrong. The thoughts vary. Like I was over here minding my business, watching Power, because you know I do Power reviews. Watching Power, I can't remember what episode it was. It actually was Power Book 2. I feel like it was season 6. I feel like this was recent, 5 or 6. They playing Fat Joe all the way up. In my feelings, okay? In my feelings, okay? Giving Carl Thomas emotional, okay? But then there's times where I'll hear the song and I'll smile. Either inward or outward, you know, externally, internally. Like, oh, you know, like it gives me warm and fuzzies. You know what I'm saying? So triggers are another thing you kind of have to watch out for, because that's something I did not anticipate. So be cognizant of that. Another good thing is creating like traditions to honor that person, if you don't mind. You know, if that's okay with you. Like, for instance, my grandmother, whenever I go to the town that she's buried in, I always visit her grave. I haven't in a while because I haven't been in that town, but you know, I always visit her grave. For this Thanksgiving, actually, I was intentional and I'm like, hey, family, we're going to eat at the dinner table this year, because you already know Thanksgiving, somebody in the living room, somebody in the kitchen, somebody in the dining room, like we all over the place eating. But I wanted to really make a point to eat at the dinner table this year, right? And I was cleaning up my dining room. Did I say living room? I hope I said dining room. I'll clean up the dining room just to make it, you know, because typically, you know, I work in my dining room. You know what I'm saying? I got my laptops and everything, paperwork everywhere. So I'm straightening it up. And my dad, he was cremated, right? So I have his ashes in a box because I can't bring myself to purchase an urn right now. Mind your business, okay? I tried to click on the Amazon link. I tried. Maybe I'll try it again in a month or so, okay? So he's in a box, and I realized just naturally, I place his box behind this chair right before, you know, dinner. And I'm like, I'm okay with this. My dad is going to eat dinner with us. Not, you know what I mean? Not eat dinner, but his spirit is going to be with us during dinner. So, you know, that was another way for me to kind of honor him and just have him be a part of what I had going on that day, right? And I will also recommend, like I've stated before in this live, one thing about death, it'll teach you about life, right? Or have you appreciate life. I will also, you know, challenge you, and I'm challenging myself to be more intentional, more creative, and pour into the loved ones that I do have here on this earth, right? Because you have to, you know, be able to understand you never know. You never know. You know, death is a hard decision to have, but you never know. And let me just insert just a quick little PSA. If you can, please have life insurance. Please, if you can, have life insurance. Okay. My dad did not have life insurance. So, you know, PG had to come out the pocket a couple little coins, okay? I mean, it was a group effort, but we had to come out of the pockets, okay? So to, you know, to properly plan and to not have a burden left on you with your loved ones, please have life insurance. You know, I've had life insurance for a long time. Because like you said, you never know, right? But try to have, or at least a savings or a note somewhere, or tell somebody, hey, if something happened, I got some bands underneath my mattress. You know what I'm saying? Have a little something, okay? And honestly, the money I had to pay, it didn't really feel like a burden because I wanted to honor him. I felt honored being able to help in, you know, his homegoing, but thank God I had the funds technically to be able to do that. But everybody don't have it. Everybody don't have them funds, child. So try to, you know, get some life insurance, okay? I'm sure there's policies as less as 10, 12, 15. I don't know. I pay like, you know, $27 a month. So please have the insurance if you don't mind, okay? If it ain't for you, do it for your loved ones, okay? Please, at least enough coverage to cover the funeral, okay? Because them funeral charges. I'm in the wrong business, honestly. Maybe I need to open up. See, I'm too scared of I'm too scared of the deceased and the spirits and stuff. So, but that ain't really for me. But if y'all can stomach having a funeral home, y'all may need to look into that because they making the bread over there, okay? Yes, RC, that will. Yes, I'm trying HEA. I gotta let the people know from my experience. But just in closing, just know that grief is a part of life. It's a natural thing. Honestly, up until this, year, even though I've grieved other people in other ways, you'd be like, damn, like people really go through this. Like, I know I'm not alone in this, but you really be reflecting like there's a lot of people out here dealing with this. Because, throughout life, I've heard people say, yeah, I lost my mother. Yeah, I lost my father. And you hear it and it registers. But until you go through it, baby, that's a whole nother ball game. That's a whole nother ball game. You be like, oh, child, this is a doozy. Okay. Miss Carrie, you said, if I can work from home, sign me up. LOL. I can do the paperwork. Child, I don't know how that works. I don't know what much you can do, but maybe you can be like an administrative assistant or something, child. Because they making big bank over there. Okay. I also want to mention, acknowledge sometimes if you're not okay. It's okay. And it's okay to tell people you're not okay. Now, sometimes if you tell the wrong people, you know what I'm saying? You have to assess who you are telling, you know what I'm saying? Because some people know the good words and the right words, and some people don't, you know what I'm saying? And some people just try, for the most part. I feel like most people are going to be sympathetic towards you, but just admit, I ain't okay. I ain't okay. Because that little lie we tell people, like, just in passing, at Target or at the Chick-fil-A. I'm just places I go to. I'm telling my business. But you be like, hey, how you doing? I'm good. Now those, what I'm saying, you can lie, even if you ain't good. You don't want to have to go through the whole conversation. But if you have genuine, relationships with people and they're genuinely asking you, how are you? Are you okay? You can be honest. And I want to give a shout out to my baby sister, because she has definitely been one of the ones that's been checking on me consistently and checking on my mental health. Like, she definitely has been, and she's offered to drive up. She's been offering to drive hours, okay, just to keep me company, okay? And of course, I'm the type of person, I don't want you to do all that, but she is definitely one of the people that I want to big up, because she been having my back. She's definitely been having my back. But shout out to little sis, okay? Because she been there. And Miss Carrie said, I'm fine. Rolls off the tongue, just lying. Yes. It's just, by nature, we just be like, I'm fine. Even though you damn near falling apart, okay? Busting at the seams, okay? but just not to bring down the mood or, not have a long conversation. Because, we kind of ask that, and I'm guilty of that. Like, if you're not fine, sometimes I'm like, dude, I got this report to fill out, coworker. I wouldn't, and rarely, people will be like, well, I ain't fine. Like, I don't know if I ever had a situation where somebody was really honest, just in those casual, like, I feel like I probably have a couple overshare coworkers that extended that little conversation, small talk. But yeah, for the most part, let the people know if you're not okay. Ronald Cameron, sorry, RC, I'm so sorry. Ugh, I need to smack myself every time I do that. I believe that Tamika might have mentioned that last week on her show, but it bears repeating. Stay away from toxic/negative folks when you're grieving, not doing well. Yeah, that's actually a good point. I personally don't have like any toxic or negative people around me. Now there are some people that I probably would consider them stressors. I don't think they intend to be toxic. But yeah, that's definitely a good point. That's definitely a good point. I didn't get to catch that live. But that's definitely a good point. You gotta be, more aware and cognizant of how to manage, the people in your life when you're going through these things. Because, child, I got stories, okay? I got stories because let me just tell y'all, it's always that one family member that act the F up when it comes to a death. It's always that one person. It's like, why are you being so dramatic and so heinous and so stressful? Like, just very much selfish and unnecessary. Okay, I ain't gonna share too much. Maybe one day, but yeah, I had a family member, and I'm saying family member. Okay, I think I should put her in a relative category. I had a relative or have a relative that was doing the absolute most during this whole process. And I'm like, girl, what are we doing here? You got all the say so and all the goddamn gall and audacity, but I don't see you picking up nothing, doing not one task, and not open up that pocketbook not one time. Shut it up, okay? That's all I'm gonna say about that. RC said you can call me by my government name if you want. So I'm just so used to it because you used to be your name on YouTube. So I apologize. I'm just so used to saying it, and it's a good name. It's a good name that rolls off your tongue. You know what I'm saying? But I also want to mention before I get out of here. I didn't mean to make this a long video, but I'm having a good time kind of talking to you guys. If you don't have the resources for therapy, because therapy is expensive, let me just tell you how these people fool me with trickery, right? So while I'm, enrolling in the therapy through my company, right? My employer, this whole process, nobody's giving me prices. Nobody giving me prices, okay? And I'm like, okay, well, it must be free, right? Nobody giving me the prices. Insert months later, I get a bill, and I'm like, for her? For the trash therapy? Yeah, I was so annoyed when I found out how much 6 sessions was, child. I was like, first of all, she wasn't even good. Okay, like, what are we doing here? And see, it was funny, right? Because the same session I was actually about to break up with her, she actually told me she was leaving the company. I was like, whoo. She saved me the hard conversation. I was probably just going to be, just general, but I was literally about to break up with this therapist, and she was like, yeah, this company is I'm gonna be leaving. I'm like, yeah, because you're probably not getting no good feedback, girl. Because it was not even there. It was so annoying because she literally was asking me questions, typing for minutes on minutes on minutes, on minutes on minutes. Ask me a question, typing. Minutes of, I'm like, girl, I could have talked to Chat GPT or whatever the hell the thing is. I could have talked to Siri or Alexa. Like, what? Like, it was such horrible experience, child. And now I'm over here. Yes, out of pocket, girl. I mean, I'm paying most of it, through my HSA. But it's still, funds, okay? I'm like, what? Child. But I ain't even gonna trip. RC said, look into your insurance. Some companies give you free. Yeah. And so that's what I was thinking. It's a whole story. It's a whole story. But I need to look back at some things, honestly, before I pay them another red cents. Because I feel like I got bamboozled. I got hoodwinked. Okay. He said, I don't like that. My first therapist was similar to that. Yeah, Miss Carrie. I'm like, what are y'all doing here? I could have called one of my homegirls for this. For the Exactly. And don't get me wrong, I got a couple homegirls where they have saved me thousands of dollars. Okay. Shout out to the homegirls. Okay. Shout out to the homegirls. Okay. And I'm just honestly giving a special shout out to Ramona and Miss K. I don't want to blow you up, girl. But just know you have been a great resource for me. Okay. Yes, she, is my YouTube comrade, but we are definitely have grown, to a closer dimension. And I'm just giving her flowers. She has been there. Okay. She has been there. Okay. So shout out to her because she was one of the people that helped save me some money on the therapy. Okay. Not saying you should trauma dump on your friends. I ain't even saying that because I have had situations where I've had friends throughout the years and it would be trauma dumping. Okay. And I did learn a good technique, not saying I necessarily needed to use this, but I may use this in the future. I don't know where I heard this, right? But somebody recommended, I feel like it was a podcast, but someone pretty much stated, hey, if you want to go to a friend or someone to kind of release, ask permission, like, hey, do you have this space for me to share what I have going on? And I thought that was I think I messed up. It's not verbatim, but that's pretty much the gist of the recommendation. I mean, that's such a cool way to kind of be cognizant of what your friend or family member may have going on, and also ask them for permission to unload. Because some people, sometimes you don't have the space to unload or receive things. You know what I'm saying? Because you're going through your own shit. Because 9 times out of 10, everybody goes through their own shit. It's just a matter sometimes of you being a person that's able to compartmentalize or just having the capacity at that day or that time to be able to counsel your friend, family, or loved one. You know what I'm saying? So definitely a good tip to just ask first, because we quick to be like, girl, you know what I'm saying? Let me tell you, we just sometimes be getting jumping into the convo, and we haven't, I'm not rude like that, but because normally before any of my friends go into the deep thing, we kind of, do a little small talk, little check-in, or, there are times sometimes that are emergency situations where you be like, girl, I need to talk. Are you free? And sometimes we just unload. But now I'm going to be cognizant, and I don't feel like I do it too often, but I'm just going to be aware of like, hey, before I have anything I need to unload, or if I feel that need, be like, hey, girl, I have some things going on. Are you available to receive what I have to release, right? And just kind of another tip in terms of having a relationship where you guys share. Also, maybe ask as the person that's receiving the information to be like, hey, do you just want a listening ear, or do you want some feedback and or advice? Because sometimes that gets tricky too, because sometimes I'm the friend that's the fixer. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to solve your problem, solve your resolution. Not just a friend, I'm the wife, I'm the mother, I'm the sister that just kind of want to, because I'm the type of person, everybody else's stressors affect me. So in order to, and in a selfish way sometimes, in not selfish way, I want to be able to resolve their issues, because in turn, that's going to resolve any stress that I'm going to feel from their issues, right? So I want to quick fixes, right? So it's good to, when you have those conversations with people, just like, hey, do you just need a listening ear, a shoulder to cry on, or do you actually want some feedback? That's another tip, right? But going back into, therapy and the cost, if you can't afford therapy, try to find some other resources. There's Google out there. Now you got to be careful with the Google, and the sources, because everybody want to be a therapist out there in them streets. Everybody want to give advice and they're not qualified. So, try to find reputable sources to kind of, get you through grief or whatever you're going through. I haven't checked, but I'm sure there's probably some YouTube channels and videos, books. And honestly, surprisingly, I listened to a podcast today. Well, not today, Lord, I'm lying. maybe 2 days ago, and it was Savannah James's podcast, Everybody's Crazy. Now, I'm a fan of Savannah James. LeBron, I can take him or leave him, honestly. Anywho, it's not about that. Now, her podcast, I have a lot of critiques, honestly, because it's light, but it really doesn't serve like a huge purpose, or it's not as profound as I may have expected it to be. But when she had a particular thumbnail and the title of this particular podcast, where I was like, oh, let me go ahead and listen, right? Because she had like some extra friends on there, and I, unbeknownst to myself, these friends were like therapists and stuff, right? And the title of the video had nothing to do with grief. I had no idea that they want to discuss grief, but they actually had a grieving segment. And my God, when I tell you that segment hit me in a comforting way, not like in a sad way, it comforted me. And I was like, I needed to hear this. You know what I'm saying? It was an unlikely source. And sometimes I honestly, since I believe in God, I feel like that's God. Like, I feel like God makes ways for you to listen, or he makes ways and opportunities for you to be like, hey girl, hey God, you need to listen to XYZ. Like, he'll call you to things even though you didn't even realize you needed or was asking for it, right? Because the segment included, you know, her friend experienced grief with the ex-husband or what have you. And she was explaining how she felt lonely in her grief, right? And, you know, I do experience loneliness, even though, you know, I have a loving husband. I have a great, you know, child at home. Sometimes I do feel lonely in my grief because one, and don't get me wrong, even though it's my father, my husband experienced grief too. You know what I'm saying? So I'm cognizant of that. But I feel lonely because one, I was having that phase in my life where I felt like people wasn't checking up on me like I thought they would, that I would, you know, because I'm like, dang, I would check on you. Why are you checking on me? So I had that moment where I'm like, dang, nobody's checking up on me. So I was feeling lonely from, you know, dealing with those emotions. And then I'm the type of person, I don't want to bring down the mood. Even though my husband is a great communicator and he likes to talk things out, sometimes I feel guilty like bringing certain things up because I'm like, dang, you know, I don't want to bring down a mood, or, you know, even though he never makes me feel that way, I overthink. And sometimes I pull back on, you know, expressing things. So I kind of deal with it internally. And then another thing is, you know, he didn't necessarily deal with this, you know, this type of experience, you know, with his own, you know, parent, even though he's still experiencing grief because he did have a relationship with my father as well. But, you know, grief can bring, you know, loneliness in a way you can't imagine. So, you know, her expressing these feelings made me feel comforted, made me feel like, even though I know grief is a normal thing, it just made me reassured and how I was feeling, like, okay, I'm not the only one that's feeling this way. Like, oh, cool. Like, you know, I just love situations like that where it's not, and I wasn't even necessarily having a bad or a down day, but it was still something I felt like I needed that reassurance. Yes, it was right on time, Miss Kira. And that also allowed me to, grief has really allowed me to understand my shift in my love languages, you know, and it made me realize like love languages is not necessarily exclusive to romantic relationships. Like, love languages can be how you express your love with your child or your parent, or, you know what I'm saying, a friend, you know. And I realized, you know, through feeling the sadness and upsetness of people not checking up on me, I'm like, oh, my love language, it's always, I feel like, been acts of service, because I don't feel like I just have one love language. But now I'm realizing, no, I don't just need that from my husband. I need that from other people, because, you know, there's a love language of words of affirmation, and as well as acts of service. So I feel like, you know, you checking up on someone is more of an act of service than necessarily, you know, words of affirmation. I feel like that doesn't necessarily fit well, but it taught me like, hey, my love language is that for everybody. I want people to check up on me. I want you to do things not necessarily for me, but an act that shows me that you care or that you're thinking of me, So that was another enlightening moment I experienced through my grieving process. Okay. It's just, not about a romantic love. It's also about, the love you share with the other, types of relationships you have in your life. So, yeah, guys, I feel like I talked my behind off. But nonetheless, I hope you guys, found some sort of purpose of watching, whether it be entertainment or just insights or just confirmation. I don't know, but this was definitely enjoyable and therapeutic for me. Maybe for you, I feel like my general presence on YouTube is more of a jovial, happy, sort of light personality. So I just want to let y'all know, I'm gonna say like I'm like some high figure, but I experience these things too. We are all human, we are all the same, and we all are dealing with life because life is MFing lifing, okay? And how each of us navigate these feelings, these experiences, they differ, but we all share a common thing that we're all kind of going through our own things together. So I also want to thank my subscribers and my fellow YouTubers for allowing me the grace, because my presence on YouTube has been very much in and out this year, due to grief, due to health concerns, due to time, like, juggling a life is hard. Okay. I work a 9 to 5. I am a mother. I am a wife. I am a sister. I have all these other relationships I'm trying to manage, on top of trying to create me time, family time, and do YouTube, And I feel like for the most part, people realize that. But I feel like sometimes people don't. Because of course, every content creator has their own setup. They have their own life. Some people, are able to dedicate more time to YouTube than others. But I also just want to acknowledge that I appreciate everyone that has supported me, especially when I come on my community tab, like, y'all, I'm taking a break. I need it. Okay. And don't get me wrong, I feel guilt a lot of time. It's lessened. Don't get me wrong, but I feel very guilty for not having as big as a presence and being as consistent as I once was. But I also am very aware if I don't take care of me, there would be nobody be looking at PG. Okay. I would not be out here in y'all face. So, just know that a lot of times I am pushing the F through for these videos, even though I love them and enjoy them. But a lot of times, these videos take time, whether we're watching shows, writing notes, coming up with graphics, wherever it is, even just the smallest thing of a thumbnail. You may not think a thumbnail could take anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's not necessarily my ministry, and I don't claim it to be, but that's just an example. Like, it's taking time out of, whatever else you have going on, because, you either enjoy YouTube, you love YouTube, and, the community. I love, just being able to converse with you guys, about shows or whatever I have going on, because it's a labor of love. Okay. YouTube, they could pay the cable bill. Okay. If you have a good mom, you can put a little gas, a little something, a couple of Chick-fil-A meals, it ain't a lot. It ain't a lot financially in terms of a reward, but just the overall reward of feeling whole, or fulfilling some type of whole, because this is kind of a hobby. It's fun. It's meant to be fun anyway. You know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, it can be as cumbersome as a part-time job, because if you put a lot of energy and time and thought into your content, it's gonna take some hours out of your life, out of the week. Okay. So I definitely appreciate you guys for rocking with me through my YouTube journey and just my journey through life, because I do share, what's going on with you guys. Because what's the high? What's the big secret? Nothing. Okay. But yeah, y'all, it's been an hour and a half. Okay. This is kind of long. Okay. I can run my mouth. And I kind of miss you guys. I'm gonna hold you. I am going to try to check in before the new year, just see how y'all doing. I actually do have a live. Me and Inga are planning tomorrow to review American Gangster. Hopefully we can get that done. I realized we talked about that 2 years ago. We gonna get it together, y'all. We gonna get it together. But life has been lifing. So hopefully, okay, we will be able to review American Gangster tomorrow. If not, we gonna reschedule. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. We busy women's up in here. Okay, but the plan is tomorrow at 9:00, American Gangster, and then my nephew and I will be reviewing Home Alone 3 on Saturday, and then Home Alone 4 is currently scheduled for next Monday. Because I'm trying not to do that Christmas Eve. Okay, I'm trying to get all my cooking done Christmas Eve, so I ain't got to cook for Christmas, because one of my Christmas presents to myself is to not be slaving and sweating over that kitchen like I was for Thanksgiving. Okay. Deary B said, don't take my card. I haven't seen it, trying to watch it tonight. Your black card. It's okay, girl. It's okay. If y'all realize how many of the cult classic movies I have not seen or just recently seen, y'all be like, PG, you should be ashamed of yourself. And I am kind of ashamed of myself sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, dang, I should have seen that. Like, where was I? What was I doing? Was I with the Barbie dolls? Was I in my books? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, where was I when this came out? I really be feeling bad. Like, I haven't. And that was my intention, honestly, this year, is to kind of review a lot of the movies I have not seen. The list is long, you guys. Okay, so hopefully I will try to knock some of those reviews out in the next couple of months. We'll see. That was the goal for this year, so maybe it's going to be transferred to the 2025 bucket. We don't know. Okay. But again, you guys, I love you. Thank you for listening to me discuss grief and all the other little extra stories or information that y'all cared to hear about or didn't care to hear about. But as I stated, my purpose was to, just shine some light on a little bit of my grieving journey, and, just provide some sort of comfort, and let y'all know we are here. Experience life and death. Yes, new beginnings. Okay. But y'all, please enjoy the rest of y'all nights. Oh my God, it's 10:11. It's 10:10. Where you been? Sorry, I don't know why Genuine popped in my head. Y'all know I'm random. Okay. But y'all, I'm a mess. Hey, Support Game in 2026. You always ahead of the game. 2026. But I'm about to get out of here. I will see y'all tomorrow, and I'll see y'all on Saturday. Okay. Love y'all. Please like the video. Until next time. Toodles.
Hey, Whitney, back at donuts. How are you?